is Ed Robinson of Kensington College, talking today in C# about the overloaded operator. The overloaded operator is when we actually change the meaning of signs. We change the meaning, the plus, the minus, the divide, multiply, etc. Let's say that we had an ordinary old class. Part P1 is we've initialized the value of I to 1. We've initialized the value of the second object, P2. We've initialized that object to its I value equal to 2. And we've got a part 3 as well. At the moment, we're just going to, well, what we're going to do is to try and add together two objects. So we'll have something like this, that P3, now we're not saying P3i equals P2i plus P1i plus T2i. We're trying to add together two objects, for goodness sake. Now what on earth would that mean, P1 plus P2? Because that's what we're going to do. We're going to actually give some meaning to this plus sign, and that's what we call overloading the operator. Now, so what do we mean by P3 is P1 plus P2? Well, you'd think maybe we could add the i's together. Yeah, sure. Why not? But maybe it's also got a j member as well. And you might want to add together the j elements. Who knows? So we have to decide what we're going to mean by P3 is P1 plus P2. So let's just continue with our I. Now we need to make what an overloaded operator, and the way we do that is just by using this notation. We're making a function, if you like. It's a static function where we're using the word operator here. You need to remember this, and then using the word static there, and the name of the operator that we'll be overloading. And since we're returning an object, then we need to declare our new object, part P, and this looks like it's complaining a bit because it says we're returning a part object, but we haven't shown any object to return yet. So let's just do that before we go any further to stop it complaining. Then we need to decide what we're going to do in here. Are we going to add I or add J or whatever? We're free to redefine what this plus sign does. So in our case, we say we're going to add together the elements, the I elements. So we might therefore just want to print out the I element, P3.I, to make sure that we've added 1 plus 2 to give 3. So we might as well just run that and see indeed that we get the result of 3. We might just put a breakpoint here and run our code, and we should find up to here that P1 has been initialized. You can see it's got the value of 1, I's got the value of 1, I should say, and I's got the value of 2 for P2. And for P3 at the moment it's null. If I press F11, that should be initialized to 0. Now it encounters now a plus sign here, and it says, goodness me, what does this mean? We've actually got an object here and an object here. What does it mean to have a plus sign in between? Well, when C# sees a plus sign in between two objects, it goes looking up here and sees if it can find an operator which is redefining the plus sign. And there it is. So if I press the F11 key now, you can see that it jumps into that code and passes P1 is, I should really use another variable name here, but being a bit lazy, I've used P1 again, and you can see that P1, this value of P1 has got a value of I as 1, you might just see that, and P2 has got a value of I, its I has got a value of 2. So that's been successfully passed from here, the P1 down here has been passed up to this P1 here, and the P2 is correspondingly being passed as well. So we need to create a new part in this case, because that's what we're going to be returning according to this. And then we decide to add those two together. So if I press the F11 key, now in this case it creates a new part P object, but there's an intermediate step here that it will jump up and call the property and set the respective P1 and P2, and then we should find that this, as you can see, if you can just read that, it says that P's I is 3. So that's indeed what's going to be passed. Incidentally, your code, you might try it, and when you press F11 it actually doesn't jump in to this code. So we need to take a look at an option there, which we find from Tools, Options, Debugging, General. Make sure this is not checked in here, Step Over Properties and Methods, otherwise you won't see it go into the overloaded operator. So if we continue, this P now is returned, P is returned here down to P3, because it's on the left hand side of the equal sign. And you'll see now that P3, and if I look there, P3 has got an I of 0 at the moment. If you can just read that, F11, and you'll see that P3 has now got a value of 3. And finally we just print out the value of P3, the P3's I, and you should find that that gives you the value of 3. You might like to see an application of this in graphics, for example, where we want to move a point from one place to another. If we've got 1, 2, and we want to move the point up here, a distance 2 there and 1 there, you can see that the new coordinate here ought to be 1 plus 2 is 3, comma 2 plus 1 makes 3. So the new point should be at 3, 3 after it's been translated a distance of 2, 1. So first of all, we could define or represent our point using this. We've got int x is obviously the x, and int y is the y in the vertical direction, and then we can initialize our point for x is 1 and y is 2. Now perhaps a bit confusingly, I've represented P2 as a new point being this distance 2 here and 1 here. Now that may be a bit confusing, but